Hello. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to Susan G. Komen's virtual MBC Impact Series event. My name is Casey Volpe with Susan G. Komen's Community Education and Outreach team. Thank you for your patience while we got things started. We had a little difficulty with Facebook, but all is well. So we're going to dive right on into today. The programming for this series is envisioned as a year-long conversation with attendees, presenting new information and speakers each month. Today is exciting because we kick off our research series, starting with MBC and ER-positive breast cancer, with our featured speaker, Dr. Angela DeMichele. But before we begin, I just want to take a moment and take a second to thank our sponsors for supporting the 2023 MBC Impact Series. So thank you to AstraZeneca for being this year's technology sponsor. This virtual setting means MBC patients, no matter where they live, can be part of this community. We would also like to thank our premier sponsor, GE Healthcare, as well as our signature sponsors, Walgreens, Daiichi Sankyo, Sanofi, and Merck. The series is made possible because of all of their generosity. So just a housekeeping note. While our speakers are talking, please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we will get to as many as we can. Towards the end of the programming, you'll notice a survey link will be placed in the chat. Your feedback is very important and helpful for future program planning. And by completing the survey, you'll be entered to win a drawing for an Amazon gift card. So please take just a few moments and give us that crucial feedback. Now, we're excited you're all joining us today. To start, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Missy Van Lokeren. In June 2014, Missy was diagnosed with invasive lobular breast cancer. Since her recurrence to MBC in late 2018, she has dedicated her time to patient advocacy. She is very proud of her work with Susan G. Komen. She represented Komen on the Hill and spoke to Congress about MBC patient issues, and she interviewed 2 renowned doctors at the National MBC Conference. This year, she was a patient advocate reviewer for 6 grants on redefining MBC. She's a patient advocate on 2 grants awarded from Komen that bring Duke and University of North Carolina labs together and is in a cooperative to study and lead to new treatments and cures for MBC. She chose to not let MBC define who she is, but instead to help researchers with projects that will improve the patient experience and outcome. She believes there may be a cure for metastatic breast cancer, and she wants to help make it a reality. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Missy. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be a part of this series today. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with metastatic breast cancer. As we all know, metastatic breast cancer is the only breast cancer that kills, and it is what a lot of researchers are focusing their time and energy on at this point. And I've been so happy to be a part of Susan G. Komen and helping advise researchers in ways that will make this medicine and this treatment better for metastatic breast cancer patients and hopefully lead to a much needed cure and much needed better treatment. Being a part of a research and being a patient advocate has really given me, it's empowered me in a way to use the energy I have towards, survival and just trying to get through the day with this diagnosis. And it just gives me a sense of power to help researchers and know that there is good research out there and that we're moving in the right direction. And it just makes me hopeful, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our main speaker today, Dr. Angela DeMichele. Dr. DeMichele holds the Jill and Alan Miller Endowed Chair in Breast Cancer Excellence and is professor of medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. Her research focuses on development of experimental therapeutics, investigation of prognostic and predictive biomarkers, and design of novel approaches to identify and treat minimal residual disease to prevent recurrence. She has led and co-led several national multi-center trials, including PALAVI, PALIS, COMPASS, BCR, and AMBER trials. At the Abramson Cancer Center, ACC, of the University of Pennsylvania, she co-directs the To Prevent Translational Center of Excellence, co-leads the peer-review-funded research program, and developed translational researches, including a comprehensive biobank and database. PI of numerous translational epidemiologic studies and investigator-initiated clinical trials, including the Wellness After Breast Cancer Longitudinal Cohort Study, which has shed light on the role of inflammation in breast cancer recurrence. She has played a pivotal role in the development of the first CDK4/6 inhibitor, palbociclib, and led the I-SPY2 trial and graduating several new agents in the neoadjuvant setting that increase pathological complete response. Additionally, she serves on the executive committee of the AACR San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, the NCI Breast Cancer Steering Committee, clinical guidelines coming in both the American Society of Clinical Oncology and the European Society of Clinical Oncology. And as an associate editor of Natural Breast Cancer Center, Dr. DeMichele's Komen funded research is focused on validating new methods for detecting minimal residual disease to enable novel therapeutic approaches to prevent recurrence by utilizing novel techniques for detecting disseminated tumor cells and circulating tumor DNA. Very impressive. Dr. DeMichele, welcome to our series.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's just such an enormous pleasure to be here. So I think we'll go ahead first with a slide set to give you all some background on what's understood about the biology of metastatic breast cancer, and then we'll spend some time taking your questions. Great. So I think we'll just put that into presenter mode. Perfect. Okay, let's go to the first slide. Thank you. So I think it's helpful to take a moment to sort of see where we've been and where we're going, and just give you a flavor for the magnitude of the issue. So what you see on the left is sort of the latest in terms of the information we have on incidence and mortality from breast cancer. And so the blue dots are the incidence. That's how many new cases of breast cancer are occurring. And you can see that there was a little dip around 2000. That was when we determined that hormone replacement therapy was leading to an increase in ER-positive breast cancer, and that cessation of using hormone replacement therapy led to a drop in breast cancer. But since that time, unfortunately, we've been seeing a steady increase still in the number of new cases per year. But the good news is mortality is dropping. So you see the yellow dots, that is a consistently lowering risk of dying of breast cancer. And really, you can see that over the last 30 years, we've really made an appreciable impact on helping women survive this cancer. Of course, we still have a long way to go. When you look on the right, you can see just how many new breast cancer cases and how many breast cancer deaths occur. This is data from 2020. So these numbers need to come down. And this is why it's so important that Komen is focusing on metastatic breast cancer and on whether or not we can find a way to prevent it and to cure it. Next slide. So let's talk for a moment about what we understand about why breast cancer becomes metastatic and how we can attack it. So I like to think about this analogy because it's really a great way to think about what happens to cancer cells in the body. So this is a nice, beautiful green lawn, and I'm here in Philadelphia where it's not very green today and there are no leaves on the trees. So this is sort of a nice picture to see today. But of course, if you just click once, we'll see that, we're always fighting the dandelions. And, if you have a beautiful lawn and you have one dandelion, and you're able to pick that dandelion from the roots, you can eliminate it. And that's a little bit like if a breast cancer develops, and click that one more time. We do surgery, we get rid of it, and we can cure it. That's the best case scenario. And using mammograms, we're able to find breast cancers early, and we're able to cure many, many of those breast cancers. However, go to the next slide. If we wait and that breast cancer becomes the type that has those little tiny parts to it that fly away, you know what I mean, right? The wind comes up and all of those little seeds start to scatter. If you click again, well, that's a problem, because those little seeds are just like little seeds that can escape from the breast, from a breast cancer. And those little seeds can scatter throughout the body, just like in a lawn. And you might not see them at first. They're just hiding in the green grass. And we have the same problem for some women who get breast cancer, where little seeds can leave the tumor in the breast, travel through the bloodstream, find their way to parts of the body, particularly the bone marrow, where they can go to sleep or become dormant. Click again. And the problem is that surgery doesn't cure this, because taking out the cancer doesn't eliminate all of those little microscopic dormant seeds. The problem is we just don't know that they're there. And so go along hoping that everything will be okay. Click again. But unfortunately, click again. Over time, those seeds can turn into dandelions in their own right. And this is what we see when there's a metastatic recurrence. All of those little seeds that were sleeping woke up and started to divide, and now we have metastatic disease. So thinking about it that way, we can think about the disease itself, as well as how we might go about trying to prevent it. One of the things that's very important is to understand that although all those dandelions look the same, in metastatic breast cancer, all of the metastases in the body are slightly different. They aren't all identical. Let's talk about how we know this. Go ahead and click again. Next slide. Well, so this just gets back to the idea that I mentioned before, which is how could we eliminate these seeds before they blossom into metastatic disease? And here you can imagine if we could just get out there with treatments and ways in which we could train the immune system to find these cells, we could eliminate them before they ever turn into something that is metastatic. So we'll talk in a little while about how we might go about doing that. Go to the next slide, please. So first, it's important to think a little bit about where does estrogen receptor positive breast cancer fit into the overall scheme of things. On the left-hand side, you can see the different types of breast cancer in that pie chart. And the dark, the sort of medium blue are the hormone receptor positive HER2 negative breast cancers. Those are the ones that have estrogen receptors. And the dark blue are the hormone receptor positive HER2 positive breast cancers. So taken together, that makes up 80% of all breast cancer. So 80% of breast cancer is estrogen receptor positive. If we look on the right-hand side, we see that the hormone receptor positive or estrogen receptor positive breast cancers are the ones that do the best. So patients who have these kinds of breast cancer have very high 5-year survivals. For hormone receptor positive HER2 negative disease, it's 94.4%. For hormone receptor positive HER2 positive disease, it's 90.7%. But of course, it's not 100%, and that's where metastatic disease comes in. That's why it's so important that we tackle this. Next slide. To understand the ways in which metastatic breast cancer can develop and grow, it's important to understand that it's really about genes. And genes are segments of DNA, and a gene is like the DNA language for how your cells work. So every cell in your body contains these genes that are composed of these segments of DNA. And the DNA is composed of these different components, the G, the T, the A, and the C. And the way in which those different components are ordered creates a sequence. And that sequence is a code or a language for producing a protein that's important in your body. And again, all of your cells have this, And that DNA sequence is very important because it's like any language, you need to get the spelling right. So you can see here, there's a segment of this DNA sequence that spells the word act. But a mutation is actually a spelling change in the DNA in which the sequence now is no longer in the right order. And switching out one of those C's for a T changes the meaning of the DNA sequence, just like a spelling change changes the meaning of a word. That could make a cell no longer function properly. And once those DNA changes happen in a certain way or in a certain number, the cell can become cancerous. So at its heart, breast cancer, like any cancer, is a disease of gene mutations. Next slide. Now, when the tumor starts to form, these are cells that are growing in a way that is no longer well regulated. And that first cell that becomes mutated, you can see that first mutation, that creates another set of mutations and another and another. And as the cells grow and divide, they accumulate more and more and more of these mutations. Now, tumors will form because of these mutations. And even after a cancer forms, the cells within the cancer continue to mutate. And so one tumor's mass might contain 1 million cells. That 1 million breast cancer cells may all be slightly different. They may all have slightly different combinations of mutations because of this way in which the cells replicate. And that's called tumor heterogeneity. And that is the reason why when breast cancer becomes metastatic, it is so hard to treat, because the cells have accumulated a lot of mutations and not all the cells are the same. So one treatment may not work on all of the cells. Next slide. Now there's different kinds of genetic abnormalities. There are the inherited ones, you can blame on your parents. And we think about this as the kind of breast cancer that runs through families. So there can be genetic abnormalities like BRCA that lead to breast cancer in people who inherit those mutations from their parents. And that only accounts for about 5 to 10% of breast cancer. The rest of breast cancer is due to what are called somatic mutations. Those are mutations that are only in the cancer cell. The rest of your cells are normal. And all cancers have these, and these are the ones that are the most common. This is 90% of breast cancers are not due to inherited mutations, but in fact, these genetic changes that happen most likely due to damage from the environment that happens to the cells. I wish we understood exactly how that works, but there's a lot of work left to do to really understand how environmental assaults impact the cells and create cancers. Next slide. The other thing is, as I said, this code in the genes ultimately leads to the production of proteins, and proteins are what make cells do their job. And there are many steps between mutations and proteins that can also be abnormal, particularly in cancers. So you might hear a word called epigenetics. Epigenetic changes are changes that actually turn the genes on and off. That can also be dysregulated in cancer. So certain genes are turned on that shouldn't be turned on, and other genes that are needed for normal cell function are turned off. And if that happens, even with normal genetics, we can see cancers develop. And this is why sometimes when tumors are profiled, we don't see mutations. You say, how can this be a cancer if we're not really seeing any mutations? Well, that's because some of these other changes can occur to create a cancer, even when there aren't any fundamental spelling errors in the DNA. Epigenetics is one main way that can happen, But some of the other things I've listed here are other ways that can happen. MicroRNAs can alter what genes actually go into production. Splicing can take proteins that are made from genes and turn them into new proteins by slicing them up. The proteins can be further modified or even broken down inappropriately. So all kinds of things can happen that turn normal cells into tumors and make tumors hard to treat. Next slide. So let's get to hormone receptor positive breast cancer, because that's what this session's really about. So if you click again, you'll remember I said that the largest proportion of estrogen receptor, hormone receptor positive breast cancers are, they make up 70% of all breast cancers. And when we look at the genes that can tell us the difference in the different kinds of breast cancers, we now have a way to classify cancers on the basis of their gene expression. So what we see down below are the different types, we call these subtypes of breast cancers based on gene expression. The two that are hormone receptor or estrogen receptor positive are luminal A and luminal B. The HER2 gene type and the triple negative gene type have different gene combinations, but it's the luminal A and luminal B that are the hormone-driven, hormone receptor positive cancers. And we also know that the degree of estrogen and progesterone expression in the tumor is predictive of how well the tumor will respond to an anti-estrogen or endocrine treatment. So what we see in the top right is that with increasing amounts of estrogen receptor positivity, we see improvements in the responsiveness to endocrine therapy. And if you click one more time, we also have learned that with hormone receptor positive breast cancers, unlike other types of breast cancers like triple negative, the risk of recurrence can be lifelong. So we typically think that if a patient makes it to 5 years after a triple negative breast cancer or a HER2 positive breast cancer, it's very, very unlikely for that cancer to come back. But for hormone receptor positive breast cancers, there is a risk of recurrence that continues throughout a patient's lifetime. Next slide. The good news is that we have had many, many new treatments approved for breast cancer over the last decade, and the ones that are highlighted in yellow are specifically for hormone receptor positive breast cancer. And what you see when you look at this timeline from 2010 to 2020, all of the different treatments that have been approved, that the ones for hormone receptor positive breast cancer are primarily on the basis of a drug called a CDK4/6 inhibitor. So in 2015, we had the first one approved that was called palbociclib. In 2017, we had the second one approved. That was ribociclib. And then later in 2017, we had the third one approved. That's called abemaciclib. Palbociclib is, the brand name is Ibrance. Ribociclib, the brand name is Kisqali. And abemaciclib, the brand name is Verzenio. We had additional approval of a fourth drug called alpelisib in 2019 that's targeting another pathway called PIK3CA. And taken together, all of these drugs have really changed the outcomes for women with metastatic ER-positive breast cancer, because we use these drugs in combination with anti-estrogen treatments, and they have had a major impact. Next slide. So how do these work? Well, it turns out that there is a protein called cyclin D. And cyclin D is a master regulator of how cells go through the cell cycle. The cell cycle, which is on the left, you see that G1, G2, M, that is the different phases that a cell needs to go through to divide into two cells. Cancer is essentially a disease of unchecked cell division. So cells are dividing out of control. The reason for that is because of alterations in this regulation of the cell cycle. So this protein cyclin D turns on and it activates a protein called RB. So you can follow that blue line. And RB, when it is activated, turns on a protein called E2F, and that is supposed to make sure that the cell stops and corrects and fixes all its errors before it continues to divide. And up at the top, you can see that there are many things that feed into turning that process on, one of which is estrogen receptor. The problem is that when estrogen receptor is turning on the cyclin D, and the cyclin D binds to this thing called CDK4/6, it'll just keep dividing and it won't stop and fix all of its errors. But when we developed these drugs that blocked that yellow CDK4/6, called the CDK4/6 inhibitors that I was just telling you about, all of a sudden now the cell will stop dividing. It won't allow cyclin D to stimulate all of these other steps that enable the cell to divide. So suddenly the cell no longer can divide. The cell is in suspended animation. It's much more sensitive to the anti-estrogens, and eventually it'll die. Go to the next slide. What we've known about CDK4/6 inhibitors now is that they provide a consistent, clinically meaningful improvement in progression-free survival in advanced breast cancer. That means that women who take these drugs who have metastatic breast cancer go a longer period of time before they have to take chemotherapy. And in fact, they even live longer. So this has been a major improvement. And they work even if the tumor has become resistant to blocking the estrogen receptor, and they work in both pre and postmenopausal women. They also have a very tolerable and manageable side effect profile. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that these three drugs, and many of you may be on these drugs, so you can vouch for this, they're very well tolerated, but their main side effect is something called neutropenia. They do drop the white blood cell count. The problem with that could be not being able to fight off infections. But it turns out that, interestingly, patients who are taking these drugs, even when their blood counts are low, don't typically get infections. And the reason is that, like I showed you, these drugs are making the white blood cells stop dividing, but they're not killing them. They are allowing the cancer cells to die, but they're not killing the white cells. They're just making them stop divide. And if you are taking these drugs and you are exposed to an infection, the cells can start dividing again and they can fight off the infection. So it's not as dangerous as it would be if you were to get neutropenia from chemotherapy, which is actually killing the white cells. The drugs also can lower other kinds of blood products like red cells and platelets. They can make you feel tired. And abemaciclib, or Verzenio in particular, can cause some nausea and some diarrhea. And Kisqali is the one that can have some issues with the heart that we now better understand, and really it is not a dangerous drug at all. So the drugs are a little bit different. They don't have exactly the same toxicities, and we think that this has to do with how the drugs are designed, how they're given, the schedules that they're given on, and probably also something to do with the people who take them and how your body reacts to them. Next slide. So the other thing that's really been a remarkable new advance is immunotherapy. And we're really struggling to learn how to best use immunotherapy in breast cancer. And so I wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge that this is an area where we still need more research for ER-positive breast cancer. We have seen ways in which we can block the immune, we can activate the immune system for triple negative breast cancer, and we have a drug approved, but we're still trying to learn how to do this in ER positive breast cancer. And why might that be? Let's go to the next slide. Well, the bottom line is that breast cancers are really, really good at hiding from the immune system. And so I think about it like Harry Potter. These cells are wearing an invisibility cloak. They are under the radar. So the immune system is just not able to see them. So the way we need to tackle this is to figure out a way to make these cells visible to the immune system. Next slide. And so we essentially think about these tumors that are invisible to the immune system as being cold. And we give typical immune therapy that works in lung cancer or in GI cancers or melanoma, and it doesn't work because our tumor cells in breast cancer are just not bringing the immune cells to them. But we're now seeing that we can start to use new approaches like vaccines, CAR T cells, other types of immune therapies that are adjuvant, as you see down below. And what that can do is that can train the immune system to now recognize these cells. And all of a sudden, the immune cells go rushing to the tumor and they start to infiltrate the tumor. Those are called tumor infiltrating lymphocytes, or TILs. You may have heard that term. And now we think of that as a hot tumor. And once the tumor's hot, if we give the checkpoint blocker that works in other cancers, now we start to see responses. So the most promising way in which we're going to be able to get immune therapy to work for ER positive breast cancer is through these ways in which we make the cells visible to the immune system through vaccines or other adjuvants. Next slide. And then finally, I think that it's really important. I can't give a talk these days without really wanting to bring attention to the fact that while we have lots of research that's helped us understand cancer and all of the ways in which it can hurt people, we also see that patients are not doing well with metastatic breast cancer because of disparities. And so we can't ignore the fact that much of our research simply doesn't get to people because of a lack of resources, because of a lack of insurance, because they live in places where they're isolated from a geographic standpoint. And so one of the main things happening in cancer research now is really trying to understand what we call the social determinants of health. This is, what are all of the other things that, even if we could perfectly understand the biology of breast cancer, are getting in the way of people benefiting from all of this research? And this is so important, because even if we didn't do any more research and we simply tackled these problems of disparities, of lack of access, and other social determinants, we would dramatically improve outcomes with simply the treatments that we have if we could get them to everyone. So I think I just want to put a plug in for how important this is. And Komen is doing a really amazing job at making sure that the research is including this, that we aren't just looking at cancers in a vacuum. We're thinking about them in the people in whom they occur and where those people live, the lifestyle and issues that those people are facing. And that is a really holistic approach that's going to be necessary to tackling metastatic breast cancer. Next slide. So just to finish up, I wanted to say that, we do have a vision here that I think we can prevent metastatic breast cancer along with treating those who become metastatic. And my own research is really focused on figuring out a way to do that, because watchful waiting after a diagnosis and initial treatment of breast cancer is simply not enough. So if we go back to that model that I showed you at the very beginning of this talk, where we have the issue of the dandelion seeds that scatter throughout the lawn, that we really need to find a way to monitor and detect those seeds. Those seeds we call minimal residual disease, or MRD. And if we could find those seeds and eradicate them before they can turn into a new tumor, then we could cure patients and prevent metastatic breast cancer. Next slide. And now that you know so much about how breast cancer works, this will make sense to you that the ways in which we are trying to tackle this problem within our To Prevent Translational Center of Excellence is through trying to remove the cancer's invisibility cloak. So now the immune system could attack and actually find those little seeds. We're cutting off the cell's electrical power with a drug called everolimus that tackles tumors that have certain genetic abnormalities in the mTOR pathway, and starving cells, because the metabolism of the tumor is also very, very important. And if those cells are hibernating, well, if we can cut off their energy supply, they won't be able to wake up and cause problems. And so here is where I think the future is headed in being able to prevent metastatic ER-positive breast cancer. Next slide. So I'll just end in saying that, we've made a lot of progress, and that has been an amazing thing for me to see over the course of my 20-year career. But we have a long way to go. And I think this quote really sums up that we have a lot of hope for what is to come, that we have seen so much progress. And the quote is, "It's difficult to say what's impossible, for the dream of yesterday is the hope of today and the reality of tomorrow." We've seen so many amazing advances in the last 25 years, and I look forward to the next 25 to see where we'll be. And I think that tackling metastatic breast cancer is within our reach, just a matter of continuing to fund and conduct this kind of research. I'm grateful to Komen for funding our research and many others who are really trying to tackle this problem. And I would feel very hopeful about the future for treatment of metastatic breast cancer. Next slide. And we do that as a team. We need your help. I learn the most from listening to my patients who tell me what the important issues are, what matters to them. We have many different ways in which we can fund this. We work closely with patient advocates to help guide our research. And if you go to the last slide, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge it takes a lot of people to do research. This is my team. It's made up of pathologists and radiologists and basic scientists and clinicians, clinical trialists, statisticians, our patient advocates, and many different funders. And it's really this team approach that I think is going to make an enormous difference for us in the future. With that, I'm happy to stop and take your questions. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. DeMichele. That was really informative, and we have a lot of questions for you. People are very interested in all the information you provided and have a lot of questions. So I'll get started, and please continue to post your questions. We'll try to get to all of them if we can. The first question was, any thoughts on Signatera? This is from someone who's HER2 positive with bone mets.
Yes, let me tell you what that Signatera test is. So remember, we were talking about those little seeds that go into the bloodstream and can ultimately lead to metastatic disease. Well, one way to measure those is to try to find fragments of tumor DNA in the bloodstream. And that's what the Signatera test does. It measures something called circulating tumor DNA. It's little fragments of the DNA from the tumor, just those little seed cells, and it measures the mutations that are in the tumor so that we can detect it at a very, very low level. The idea being that if you could find it while it's still in the bloodstream and hasn't made it to any other parts of the body, perhaps we could treat it and eliminate it before it could do that. Right now, what we know is that if we find this circulating tumor DNA in the bloodstream, there is a much higher likelihood of developing metastatic disease in the near future. What we don't know is whether or not there is that window of opportunity to stop the cancer before it metastasizes and becomes metastatic disease. So part of the issue is, if we do the test today and we know and we tell you that you have this, we don't know what to do about it. So the research that's happening right now is looking at, in patients who have this circulating tumor DNA, if we find it before the cancer metastasizes and we give treatments to try to clear it, does that prevent metastatic disease? And which of the treatments work and which of the treatments don't? An important thing to recognize is that those cells that are circulating through the bloodstream are very different from the primary breast cancer in the breast. And so treatments like chemotherapy do not typically work for this. So we have to find new treatments that will target these seed cells. And researchers like Dr. Louis Chodosh and others who we work with and who are funded through Komen are actually finding how these cells work, what makes them tick, so that we as the trialists can match the right drugs to these cells. So the problem right now is we're not using that test routinely because we don't know what to do if we find a positive result. And of course, the worry is that would just create a tremendous amount of anxiety about what might be to come without a good solution. So we need to get these trials done quickly so we know what to do if we find the circulating tumor DNA.
Quick question while I'm thinking about it. Is that just a blood test, Signatera? Just you take some blood and so it's a pretty simple test. It's just a matter of figuring out.
Well, it's a blood test, but the key is that they have to have a little fragment of your initial tumor because they look for the mutations in the tumor and then they create a probe that they use to search the blood. So it's complicated to make the probe and you've got to have some of the tumor to do it. But then to actually do the test and monitor, it's just blood tests. It's just taking samples of the blood and testing it.
Okay, very interesting. The next question is, once a person is diagnosed with breast cancer, should we use dialysis before becoming metastatic?
Dialysis.
I think she means scans. Should we use scans?
Okay, so the scan issue is another really, really tough issue. So if you've had breast cancer in the breast or the lymph nodes and had treatment, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and your doctor says, hey, we're done, the cancer should be gone. Of course, you want to know, is that true? And the problem has been trying to figure that out in a way that we can measure. So the easiest way that we find metastatic breast cancer now is with scans. And so the problem is, if you do a scan like a CT scan, to see a tumor, there's got to be 1 million cells there. And of course, by the time you see it on the scan, it's already in the organ, in the lungs or in the liver, in the bones. So you can't undo that, right? So what we really need are tests that, like we were talking about, the Signatera, that find it before it gets there. The other thing is that there were a couple of studies done many, many years ago now that looked at whether early detection of metastatic breast cancer made a difference, meaning if you found it before somebody had a symptom, would they live longer than if you waited and just did the scan when somebody had a symptom? And it turned out what they did was they divided the group of study patients, these two studies, into two different groups. One group got regular scans, I think every 3 months for several years, and the other group only got a scan if they got a symptom. And both of those diagnosed patients with metastatic disease. The scan group, they found them earlier than in the symptom group, but the two groups lived the same amount of time. So those two studies told us that diagnosing metastatic disease earlier didn't make it any more treatable or curable. So the problem was that
once there's 1 million cells, once you can see it on a CAT scan, that's what you mean. Yes.
And the patients who were getting the routine scans were having a lot of false positives. There would be things found in the scan and they couldn't figure out what it was. And then they have to scan and wait. And it was very distressing for people to be doing these scans because they were not very definitive a lot of the time. And people were living scan to scan and having a lot of anxiety and distress. So that's really the origin of the current watchful waiting approach to only doing a scan if you have a symptom. I will say that I think that we're getting close to a point where we might rethink that strategy because we have so many better treatments now than we did when those studies were done, and utilizing these things like Signatera to see if we could try to find the cancer before it shows up on the scan, make a difference. Also, what if we could find it in just one spot? Perhaps we could use focused radiation, other types of things. So as our treatments get better, we are thinking about whether we need to redo those studies and really try to figure out whether now in the modern era with the treatments we have, finding it earlier would be helpful. So that's something you're going to hear more about in the coming years, I think.
And I'm just going to jump on and add, do you think scans could get better where they could actually see the tumors well before they get to those sizes? Is that a possibility?
You know, I do think that that is something that I'm excited about the possibility of being able to do. You know, it's not going to be something visible to the naked eye because these cells are so rare and they're so small, but there are technologies now to link these glowing molecules to antibodies that could seek out these cells. And I think there will come a time where we will be able to use these, they're called tracers, where you get an injection and we could see those cells glow before they ever get to an organ. And that would be another great way to be able to monitor without having to have biopsies and blood tests, or maybe it'll be an adjunct to tests like Signatera.
And thank you for all that information.
But we're not there yet, unfortunately, but I see promise there for sure in the research that's being done.
That's wonderful. Okay, we have more questions. Why do you have to worry about recurrence over a lifetime if you have HER2 positive breast cancer versus triple negative?
Okay, so with estrogen, it's actually the estrogen receptor positive breast cancer.
Estrogen, not HER2, yeah.
And it's because of this dormancy, this idea that those seeds can go find a place to hide and they go to sleep. And think about it like a bear hibernating in a cave for the winter. These cells can go primarily into the bone marrow and they just burrow in and they stop dividing and they go to sleep and they can stay asleep but still alive for decades. And so what we're really trying to understand now is, number one, can we find them? And we can find them. We can go into the bone marrow, find the cells, find them while they're asleep and try to attack them while they're asleep. Secondly, we want to try to figure out what enables those cells to wake up. Because even if you have the cells, if they never wake up, they'll never travel someplace else and cause a problem. But that's why, because the cells stay there for years to decades, and then they wake up at some point in the future.
But they
Those
don't do
other
that
types of breast cancer, if they do it for a very short time. They can't do it for decades. ER positive cells can survive for decades in that state, whereas the HER2 positive and the triple negative seem like they can't survive like that for very long.
Interesting. Okay, we have some more questions. Thank you again for those great answers. Do all three CDK4 inhibitors, this is a good question, work the same way? How do we know which to start on and whether to try all three when you get progression or toxicity gets too much for you to take?
Yeah, great question. One that we're really struggling to answer. So they're not all the same, even though they're all targeting that same, those same proteins, CDK4 and CDK6. They do it slightly differently from each other. And so they have slightly different, that's why they have different toxicities, but they also have slightly different levels of activity. The good thing about that is that if one of them stops working, we're seeing now that another could still work. But the trials are going on now to help us try to understand how to sequence them and which one to choose first, what to do when that one stops working. There are several strategies that we are looking at and we're actually using now. So one strategy is if you're on one of the CDK4/6 inhibitors and one of the anti-estrogens and it stops working, you could either switch the anti-estrogen or you could switch the CDK inhibitor. We've seen one trial where switching the CDK inhibitor and the anti-estrogen really worked and patients could keep responding. Another alternative would be to add another drug that attacked the resistance mechanism. And there was a trial called the Trinity trial that added a drug that targeted the mTOR pathway I talked about. And that also seemed to have some impact. And then there's a third way. There's a thought that if you stop a CDK inhibitor for a period of time, maybe start a little bit of chemotherapy, something mild like Xeloda, the cells will reset and become sensitive again. We haven't seen, that's been seen in the laboratory. And I will say anecdotally, I have seen this in my practice, although there's never been a trial that has shown this. But that would be amazing because most of the time we think if a patient's tumor becomes resistant to a treatment, it's going to be resistant to it to get forever, and we can never go back to that treatment. But if this were the case, that there's reversibility, it would mean that you could go back after trying some other things and maybe be sensitive to these drugs again. And that's being investigated in trials now.
That is fascinating. I hope that is true.
Yes, me too.
Okay, here we have some more questions. Can you explain the significance of isolated tumor cells in one sentinel node? Would that be considered higher potential for recurrence?
Great. These are great questions. You guys are asking fabulous questions today.
Smart
really
audience
informed,
today.
Really informed. So when we refer to something called isolated tumor cells or ITCs, we know that when cancers form in the breast, they can travel through the lymphatics up to the lymph nodes under the arm, and that the tumor cells in that lymph node can be measured. You could just see a few, you could see a little cluster, you could see an actual tumor form. Isolated tumor cells are when you just see a few. And what the studies have suggested is if you just have a few, that cancer is going to behave, or that person's prognosis is going to be similar to someone whose lymph nodes are negative. So isolated tumor cells don't seem to be particularly dangerous. It's only when you get enough that there's a cluster or even a small tumor within that lymph node that it's dangerous. Did that address the question?
I think you did. I think that was a great answer. Yes, that's great. We have many more coming now. Okay, if metastatic cancer sleeps in bones and is only active in small parts of bone marrow, and then she says oligoprogression, is whack-a-mole with CBRT likely to be effective?
Okay, I think I know what you're asking. So let's clarify the terminology. So oligometastatic disease is metastasis in one or just a couple of spots. That's considered metastatic disease. It's stage 4. Sleeper cells, these dormant cells in the marrow, they are not considered metastatic breast cancer. That's still considered pre-metastatic. Okay, so you're asking about oligometastatic disease, and this is a very hot topic right now. And this is what I was getting at when I was talking about whether we should rethink, the value of scans, because there's a question of whether we could use focused radiation, that's SBRT. I think that's what you're asking about.
Yes, she said SBRT.
Particularly to the bone.
Mhm.
Let's say you just had 2 spots in the bone. Could that be enough to cure somebody who technically has metastatic breast cancer because it's in the bones. It's actually growing in the bones, dividing. That's oligometastatic. That's a question that we're trying to answer in clinical trials right now. What you'd want to know, and this is again where that these areas are all very integrated, is, certainly I have patients in my practice who, at the time of diagnosis, we do some staging tests and we find a couple of spots in the bone and we do SBRT, and that patient is free of disease for a long time. But is that patient truly free of all cancer cells? That's what we really need to know. And this is where tests like the circulating tumor DNA might be really helpful. There are likely to be situations where only a couple of those little seeds got out there, found their way to a bone and grew, and we can treat that and it's done and there's nothing else in the blood. Whereas most of these situations, there are still cells in the bloodstream that will ultimately go someplace else. But differentiating the situation where there's nothing in the blood and just in a couple of bone spots and we could treat that versus more cells in the blood, that's really another good use of this circulating tumor DNA technology.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll continue on. Who is eligible to have CAR-T therapy in trial, which has been amazingly effective for a very small number of MBC patients?
Yes, so CAR-T therapy, let's talk about what that is. So CAR-T, so remember I was saying that those tumor infiltrating lymphocytes, those immune cells that we want to see attack the tumor, that we have a hard time getting cells to do that the tumors are very invisible. So because the patient's immune cells aren't recognizing the tumor, what this is, the CAR technology is that they take a bunch of the immune cells out of your body in the laboratory, they manipulate them to now start to recognize tumors, and then put them back into the body and hope that they go to the tumor and destroy it. And it's been amazingly effective in leukemia and lymphoma, which are blood cancers. And one reason is because they're just in the blood, so it's easier for the immune system to find them. And secondly, because in those cancers, all the cells are exactly the same. There is no heterogeneity like we have in breast cancer. That's the challenge of using CAR T cells in breast cancer, is that it will likely be hard to, they're working on it, but it's been a challenge to engineer the cells to recognize all the different breast cancer cells, because they're not all the same. They have this heterogeneity, but they're working on it, and I think that we will get there eventually. So this is still considered investigational, and I would say it's something people try when they've run out of other options many times. That being said, Carl June, who developed this at Penn, where I work, recently did some mouse studies showing that it might be possible, if you did it right away, right after surgery, to get those little microscopic cells. And so we're working with him to try to figure out if there's a way that we could start using some of these technologies to find the patients who have the cells and use the CAR T technology earlier. The problem is that these engineered T cells also seem to attack other parts of the body, and people who get this therapy can get really, really sick because the cells can really rev up the immune system and make people have extremely intense allergic reactions that even were fatal initially when they didn't know how to treat this. So this is not a treatment for the faint of heart, and it's something that we are really feel like we have to really understand before we would give it to a patient who's potentially cured, because we wouldn't want to take that risk of creating a problem by revving up the immune system. So we've got to find that balance between making sure the immune cells are going to attack the cancer cells, but not attack the healthy cells and not create this massive immune response that can be very harmful.
Oh my gosh, so much great information. Dr. DeMichele, it's been a pleasure to hear all the great research. It sounds like it's up and coming and we have some hope, which is really fabulous. And I'm sorry we went a little bit over, but I just loved everything you said. And I'm really excited about the future of research. And I'm going to pass it back to Casey, and she's going to close us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
It's been a pleasure.
You guys are absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for answering those questions. To our audience, if you asked a question and we didn't get to it, I'm so deeply sorry. I have them all. And what I'm going to do is work with our Komen team and work with Dr. DeMichele and Missy to try to get you those answers. And I'll send them out with the video recording once we get all of our back end organized here, so we can just get it all out to you via email. So thank you for attending and thank you for participating. This was a great conversation today. I wanted to say a big extra thank you to Dr. DeMichele and Missy, who really made this event just absolutely fabulous. So there was a question that I did not answer, that wasn't answered publicly. We do record our sessions and they are posted to our landing page. So you can rewatch this session or any of our past sessions whenever you want or feel free or have time. So please take a look at our landing page. Help spread the word about this event with your family, your friends, your healthcare professionals, anyone you think might be interested, because we really want to make sure we're providing good evidence-based, accurate information to the community. So once again, we want to acknowledge our sponsors of the 2023 MBC Impact Series. This series would not be possible without them. So thank you to AstraZeneca for being the technology sponsor. Thank you to GE Healthcare for being our premier sponsor, and to our signature sponsors, Walgreens, Sanofi, Daiichi Sankyo, and Merck. Again, thank you. You are why we are able to put on these events. So please help us by completing the survey that is now located in the chat feature. This feedback just helps us develop the program and identify topics you want to hear about. It only takes a few minutes and you'll be entered into winning an Amazon gift card. Finally, the next event, which will be part 2 of our research series, will be February 16th and is focused on MBC and triple negative breast cancer. So if you are interested, please stay tuned, register for it, and we'll see you then. Thank you for joining today. Thank you for everyone who made this event possible, and stay safe, everyone.